We're going to go ahead and get started. If folks could please take your seats. And we're going to go ahead, and I'm actually going to first call this meeting to order for Monday, April 18th, 2022. Welcome, everyone. We are both in hybrid mode, meeting here in person as well as remotely via WebEx. Our first order of business is our Pledge of Allegiance, and I would like to invite former Mayor Ray Boxich to lead us this evening. Thank you very much, Ray. I do want to note that Councilors Fury and Caltabiano are excused this evening. With that said, I think the reason you're all here is for me to read the National Small Business Week Proclamation, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Just kidding. Bear with me. Whereas America's strongest economic growth in almost 40 years has been driven by the resilience of our small businesses who, despite a worldwide pandemic, continue to pioneer innovative solutions to our country's greatest challenges and create opportunities for families and workers. And whereas from the storefront shops that anchor Main Street to the high-tech startups that keep America on the cutting edge to the small manufacturers driving our competitiveness on the global stage, small businesses are the backbone of our economy and the cornerstones of our nation's promise. And whereas when we support small businesses, jobs are created and local communities preserve their unique culture. And whereas because this country's 32.5 million small businesses create nearly 2 out of every 3 jobs in our economy, we cannot resolve ourselves to create jobs and spur economic growth in America without discussing ways to support our entrepreneurs. And whereas the President of the United States has proclaimed National Small Business Week every year since 1963 to highlight the programs and services available to entrepreneurs throughout the U.S. Small Business Administration and other government agencies. And whereas the City of Whitefish supports and joins in this national effort to help America's small businesses do what they do best, grow their businesses, create jobs, and ensure that our local communities remain as vibrant tomorrow as they are today. Now, therefore, I, John Mulfeld, Mayor of Whitefish, Montana, do hereby proclaim May 1 through May 7th, 2022 as National Small Business Week. And congratulations to all you small business owners out in the audience and listening online. Thank you for your patience. We'll move on to communications from the public. We do have 3 public hearings advertised this evening. If you're here to speak on those public hearings, I would just ask that you wait until I call those hearings. Otherwise, if you have anything to bring to the attention of the council, please approach the podium and your name and address for the record, please. Any public comment tonight? Any public comments? Lori? No. False alarm. Not seeing any public comment. Are there any volunteer board?
John,
excuse me.
let's see if anybody is
I'm
online.
sorry, thanks.
Anybody online, if you'd like to address the council for anything that is not listed under the public hearing, please raise your hand or unmute your mic and state your name and address, please. Thanks, John. I think we're good.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks for the reminder. We do have an update on the snow lot construction project, and Lori Collins with the Whitefish Housing Authority is here tonight to address the public as well as the council. Welcome, Lori.
Standing up here, we do have Jen. She's with Encompass. That is our architect and engineering firm. We also have on WebEx David Saints. You can see his name. He is our construction manager, owner's rep that is working with us, but is Jen with Encompass, who's going to give you the overview, and it's a beautiful flyover presentation. You'll see exactly what the neighborhood's going to look like, what we have proposed. We finished 2 site plan reviews with the city, so we're well on our way, but Jen is the one that's going to take it away. If you have any questions, I'm here. We have a few other board members from the Housing Authority, and just let us know what you need.
Lori, real briefly, can you just inform the audience about what the snow lot project is before we launch into the presentation?
Of course, the
For
snow lot.
those that may not be aware of it.
The Snow Lot project is a piece of land that's been donated to the Housing Authority by the city of Whitefish. It's where the recycling plant used to be, and the snow gets deposited during the winter. We've taken over that piece of land, and we're working to develop it. Right now, as you will see tonight, we'll have 22 townhome units. These will be for sale. They are 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-story units. On-site parking, just in case, because we were talking about that earlier today. But it's a great project for home ownership. It will be deed restricted for permanent affordability, and the income ranges will be varied and wide for our locals, hopefully, to live there and raise their families and stay forever.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Jen with Encompass. I'm just making sure you guys can hear me okay.
We can.
Perfect. I'm going to share my screen. If I can here. There we go. Okay, please tell me when you all can see my screen.
We can see your screen.
Okay, great. So as Lori said, I'm Jen Clary with Encompass. I'm the principal architect for the firm and this project. And our team here at Encompass has worked with Lori and her group for quite a while. We were part of the original project with Homeward, with the Whitefish Housing Authority, putting together with the city, you know, some ideas. We held some charrettes and listened to the community, the neighbors, and really tried to incorporate everything that we heard within this project. And we have had, like Lori said, 2 site plan review meetings with the city where we've really garnered some great information, and I think we've gone down a really good path here. We're all pretty happy with what we're doing with it. We do have, we've at first thought we would do 24 units. We are doing 22 units on the site. And while we say duplex, they're duplex townhomes. So they are for sale, home ownership type project here, but it is in a duplex style home where we've got them as their single story with a little bit of the second story as a primary bedroom up on the second floor. And we did that so that we could keep the sight lines through the neighbors' views. And we have some videos prepared. We've got 3 that'll show you different views of, you know, around the site from above, and then we'll get down into the street layer and really show you what it's like from what the neighbors will see and how we can still see all around us, Whitefish Mountain, the mountains beyond. And so, like, you know, our reasoning for this type, which is kind of like a modern farmhouse, but it's very traditional. We really wanted to keep it in keeping with the fabric of what's built around us here. So we've got some very nice, simple homes with that, you know, single story, 2-story look so that we can get some views through there. So this is really just showing you the bird's eye view of how we've laid it out, which is much like what everyone has seen so far. We've got Railway, Columbia shown. We have parking centrally located so that we are trying to minimize that impact of that view from the neighbor's view shed. In working with the city of Whitefish and the fire marshal and the access, we ended up with a loop path through here for one-way only for really emergency vehicles. We weren't able to get any land adjacent to us here. That's BNSF land. And so we really have to use our lot, use our project here, you know, to get that emergency vehicle path. So we've done that. We're working on some tough things right now with the project site with regard to our retention or detention of water that, you know, from our site needs to stay on our site. And so we're working with city engineering right now, and we're also doing some groundwater monitoring We've got some identification of potential linear detention ponds that we're kind of showing throughout the site that are kind of strategically located for how we anticipate bringing some fill in and raising this up by no more than probably a few feet to make this work. We do have a little bit of kind of almost a small L here at the north where we're going to keep that as open space. We most likely, almost 99.9% will not have a playground here since we have adjacent playground areas by us, but it will be some type of open space for the neighbors to join here and get great views. We anticipate it being, maybe it's benches, maybe it's a pavilion. We're still researching this area up here for that open green space. We do have the trash and recycling that we've worked with the local refuse company to agree to this. This works for them. This is exactly what they want. So we've got that located up on the north. And then with regard to mail, we see this as more of a kiosk type mail system rather than them having to come into the site. So again, we're just trying to kind of use that area as a great way, for the neighbors to be able to get their mail and garbage and make it convenient as we can on the site. We also have a few spots that we've kind of opened it up a little bit for more kind of pedestrian pathway areas and, maybe some play, maybe just sitting. So we've really tried to open that up and explore that. And we're really happy with the way that looks with these walking paths. And beyond that, I mean, that's our site layout. We're really trying to create nice street facades for this project. And our parking, we're still exploring that, and that's really going to be determined by our detention pond. But we for sure will be meeting the requirements that we have. We would have loved to have had 44 parking spaces here. We can't with our constraints on the site. So we're looking at our requirement will be 36 parking spaces. We're going to try to exceed that. Right here we show 42 parking spaces. So we're trying to get as close as we can to that, and then still work with the subdivision and PUD regulations that we're required to work with. So with that, I'm going to go into our fly-throughs here, unless anyone has any questions before I do that. And you can stop me at any moment, and I can show other images too if you would like.
No questions so far, Jen.
Okay, great. We're going to start with the bird's eye. And there's no music to this. We should have put some music to it, but there's the video. All right, I'm going to go to the next one, which is more of getting really down into the street layer. So what we're trying to show here is you're on the neighbors' decks and how they will still see through this site. And then we have one more. And this one is really about, oops, sorry. There we go. It's really getting down into the site so you can see how we would traverse it with our sidewalks and our what we call a living wall on the north portion of this project. We've got a short little sidewalk, and then we have a living fence, which would be greenery. And there we are.
Thanks, John. Anything further?
I'm just here for any questions anyone might have.
Project looks great. Any questions for Jen or Lori for that matter? Rebecca?
It looks really nice. I have a few things. I noticed the windows that go up to the bedrooms are facing each other. Is there any way to mitigate that so that privacy's not an issue?
Yes, I think that's a great comment. And it's definitely something we're exploring with our elevations as we continue the project.
Okay, yeah, they're close together. It'd be nice if that was designed so people didn't always have to have curtains up. And then the other thing is the land between this project and the railroad, it belongs to the railroad, correct?
Correct.
Will there be a fence behind this project to keep people from going onto that land?
Yes.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if that had been designed already. And then I guess I just have a little bit of concern about water, the water issues, and I'm wondering if we should be working with BNSF on that, Craig, like see if there's some way they could mitigate it on there, and because I'm assuming it's draining from down into the neighborhood, or is it just sitting groundwater?
It's just sitting groundwater right now. They're monitoring it, and at this point, you know, we've had one test week, and it's at 0.5 feet below grade right now.
Well, this part of town has a lot of water, so, but I'm wondering maybe the railroad would be willing to work with us on some kind of a detention pond at that, okay, was
I
there?
highly doubt it. I mean, the
Okay.
railroad wasn't even interested in giving us ingress egress off of Summers Avenue for this project, but we are working with the Housing Authority's engineer on their stormwater management plan, and I think through the linear detention that they're showing on this site plan, we're, I think, getting pretty close to a final plan, so it'll definitely work out.
And there's no basements being built here, right? It's just on
Correct.
slab?
Yep.
Okay.
Correct.
Craig, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't we importing structural fill to raise the ground elevation, given the groundwater?
Yeah, I think Jen indicated, you know, likely we'll see a couple feet of elevation change, but yeah, that'll all be imported clean fill.
Great.
Yeah, it looks really nice, and thank you for that 3D design feature. It makes it a lot easier for the community. Thank you, Jen.
Further questions from
Awesome.
the council? Any online questions, Michelle? No, okay. Thanks, Jen, very much.
Okay, appreciate your time. Thank you.
You too. And we'll stay with volunteer board reports. We'll stay with the audience. John Phelps, you're next.
Good evening. I'm the chairperson of your Bicycle and Pedestrian Path Advisory Committee. Something came up this past week that I wanted to let you know about. It's kind of significant, and we might need to ask your involvement at some point. I know you're aware that property just north of the Riverbend condos is owned in part by Casey Momquist. He has agreed to give the city an easement that would cross his property and eventually connect with the Riverbend condo path. He is ready to build it this summer. Very supportive. It's set back from the river, so it shouldn't be the kind of problem we've had with Riverbend. But he has to get a 310 permit from the Conservation District because it is along the river. And he's applied. About 10 days ago, there was a site inspection. His should be a pretty clean application, but at the site inspection, there were comments made by some of the Flathead Conservation District Board commissioners indicating that they didn't necessarily appreciate the application, that they didn't expect the Riverbend condo trail to ever be built, and that his looked like a trail to nowhere, and it was pretty negative. And at a meeting a week ago today, similar comments. At the meeting, they were supposed to rule on whether he got the 310 permit or not, and there was enough controversy that they decided to call a special meeting for that purpose, invite the city to be there and comment, because they realized that what they might do is a pretty serious thing and would be very detrimental to the city's bicycle and pedestrian path. So I wanted to let you know that. The meeting hasn't been scheduled yet. It would be a very serious thing if they turn down the 310 permit. They are advised by a fisheries biologist from Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, who is the same individual who has given us so much trouble on the Riverbend condo trail. So I'm just very concerned, and I know Casey is, and I wanted you to be aware of it. We may at some point need to ask your help in approaching them and speaking to them and presenting to them. And I will just keep you posted. But the meeting will probably be in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and we may not have a lot of advance notice. So wanted you to be aware, and that's all I have to tell you.
Would you mind keeping us informed when that meeting is?
I will do that.
Quite frankly, I'm surprised they think they have jurisdictional authority over this project,
I am too.
given the law and the statutes, but we can discuss that during the meeting.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Further volunteer board reports from the audience. How about the council? We'll start with Rebecca.
Just said the tree committee is meeting tomorrow to walk Texas Avenue. I think it's at 6 o'clock, but it could be 5, but I think it's 6. Does anybody else know? Oh, well, sorry, but
That's okay.
it's tomorrow for people on Texas. So you'll see a group walking down, designing your street with trees.
Thanks, Rebecca. Further reports from the council? Not seeing any, we'll move on to our consent agenda. You have the minutes from both the regular and special sessions from April 4th. Is there a motion for approval, please?
I will move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Davis. Further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign, and the motion does carry unanimously, which brings us to our first public hearing of the evening, item 7A, consideration of a request from Blake Ringenson. I hope I apologize if I didn't pronounce that correctly, for a conditional use permit to develop an accessory dwelling unit attached to a new single-family home, and the property is located at 708 Cottonwood Court. The property is zoned WR2, which is our two-family residential district. Jessica, you're up for all 3 hearings tonight. We'll start with this one.
All right, so this is, again, a request for a CUP to allow an accessory apartment at 708 Cottonwood Court, WR2 zoned. It would be 500 square feet livable space above a garage, which would be on the same foundation as the home. The property is currently vacant, but will be developed with a single-family home with an attached garage, and the proposed ADU would be located above the garage. All surrounding uses to 708 Cottonwood are WR2. As well as the property, and it corresponds to the growth policy designation of urban. All utilities are within the city limits, and a notice was mailed to adjacent landowners on February 25th. A sign was posted on the property, and a notice was also published in the newspaper, and no comments from the public were received. The considerations for a conditional use permit, the growth policy compliance, it does comply with WTAR2 and urban in the growth policy. The setbacks are 25 feet in the front, 10 feet on the sides, and 20 feet on the rear for compliance with zone regulations. Since it's attached to a main dwelling, it will have to follow the primary residence setbacks. And there is space for parking, and again, since it's attached to the main dwelling, it'll follow the height requirements of the primary residence. And zone coverage is 40%, and it would not be above 600 square feet livable space. It's proposed for 500 square feet. So all of those conditions are met for zoning. The site is suitable because it complies with the minimum lot size, minimum lot coverage, and required setbacks. And it will be accessed from an existing roadway, and there's no environmental constraints with the project. They're also proposing to build the house and the ADU under passive house standards for energy efficiency, which conserves up to 90% less energy, uses up to 90% less energy compared with standard built homes. So it's kind of a fun fact of it. Quality and functionality. It meets functionality because it'll have the required parking spaces, it will not impact traffic circulation, and no special signage or landscaping or above ground utilities are required for it. Again, public services and facilities, this is within city limits and will be connected to all city services and Whitefish Police Department and Fire Department respond here. The Cottonwood Homeowners Park is 380 feet from the site. And neighborhood and community impact, no impact is expected with the ADU. It's not going to increase traffic generation on surrounding streets. There's no noise or vibration and no operating hours. and neighborhood compatibility. Again, this is going to be attached to a single-family residence, so it'll blend right into the primary home. So it is recommended that the Whitefish City Council adopt the findings of fact within the staff report, and it's recommended for approval. Planning Board also passed this request unanimously.
Thanks, Jessica. Any questions for Jessica on our staff report? Not seeing any. We did advertise for a public hearing on item 7A of our agenda, and we'll hold that public hearing now. Are there any public comments this evening? Not seeing any. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and turn it back to the council. Steve.
Recommend that we approve WCUP 22-10, the findings of fact in the staff report, recommended conditions of approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign. And that motion does carry unanimously. Michelle, which brings us on to item 7B, consideration of a request from Patricia Johnson for Foxtail Forscola for a conditional use permit to operate a 1st through 3rd grade alternative school, and the project is located at 300 East 2nd Street in the above ground floors, and the property is zoned WB3, which is our general business district. Jessica.
Yeah, so this applicant is requesting a conditional use permit, as you said, to operate an alternative learning school for 1st through 3rd grades, which is ages 7 to 9 in an existing commercial building. Schools are a conditional use in WB3, so that's hence the application. It would be located on the 2nd floors of an existing commercial building above Lula's Cafe at 300 East 2nd Street. Foxtail aims to build a community of early childhood learners by establishing place-based relationships and community-mindedness. Classes would be combined indoor-outdoor and include 10 to 12 students with a max capped at 30 students for the whole school, all 3 grades. Staff would be hired at a 1-to-10 teacher-student ratio, beginning with 5 to 6 staff, and operating hours would only be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. The interior of the building includes an existing kitchen and bathrooms and would be reframed to include office and classroom locations. And then there's a couple pictures in your staff report, but I think everybody knows the Lula's building in downtown. Again, it's zoned WB3, and the purpose of WB3 is intended to accommodate financial, retail, governmental, professional, institutional, and cultural activities. And it also encompasses 2 unique commercial areas which require special considerations, the Old Town Central District and the Railway District, and this project is located within the Railway District of WB3. It does correspond to the growth policy designation, which is commercial core. And a notice was mailed to adjacent landowners within 300 feet on February 25th, and it was sent to advisory agencies and posted in the Whitefish pilot. We did get a number of comments on this proposal. The owner of Inda Sushi was concerned about his beer and wine license in relation to the distance proposed for the school. The city of Whitefish has waived all distance requirements for licensing within WB3 zones, and the Montana Department of Revenue confirmed this, and I have all those comments in your packet. A condo owner along Loop 4 Avenue expressed concern with parking and pickup and drop-off locations for students. Montana Department of Transportation responded with no action needed, and a parent also emailed in support of the project. Their student currently attends their other location and spoke highly of the school. So for conditions of a CUP, growth policy compliance, it does comply. It's commercial core for the policy designation and WB3, which fits. Compliance with regulations, it's zoned to WB3 General Business District, and it's within an existing building on the railway, 2nd floor. It's intended as an allowed in WB3 zones with a conditional use permit, which follows the purpose, intent, and applicable regulations. The interior of the building, including emergency egress and fire access, must be updated to meet applicable building codes with the change of use in the building. It previously operated as a co-working space, so there's different building codes that have to be followed when it changes use to a school. And this will all be reviewed at the time of building permit to make sure that they're meeting all of those codes. Site suitability, adequate usable land area. The building is adequate to serve the proposed use. It has enough space for the intended class sizes, which aren't expected to exceed 12 students per grade or 30 students max. and the downtown community provides the location for the indoor-outdoor classroom experience. However, the pickup drop-off locations and parking is tough in this spot because WB3 has no available parking in this zone. There's a number of solutions proposed by the applicant, which we'll go over in a second. And access that meets standards. The fire marshal, again, will review the building plan at time of building permit to ensure that all of those emergency accesses and codes have been upgraded to allow for use of a school in this building. So the proposed use on the second floors of the existing building have adequate space, but parking and pickup and drop-off for students is inadequate because it has no provided parking within WB3 zones, and the building will be up to code by the time of building permit. I had a table with some pickup drop-off solutions that were proposed here. For drop-off, the Whitefish Thrift House, or Seroptimist, verbally agreed to let parents use their parking spaces in the mornings because they aren't open at the time that the students would be dropped off. So then they can walk the short distance. Since it's on the same city block, there would be no street crossings. The parents could just walk the kids to the school and then exit the parking. And the city supported this solution for a morning drop-off location. Pickup and drop-off, Black Tie Ski Rentals at 10 Baker agreed to let parents use their parking spaces along the west side of their building, along the alley. And this is located 1 block south of Foxtail, and the parents again would walk their students the short distance to the school building, crossing East 1st Street. Only concern with this one is that Black Tie Ski Rentals is renting that building, and so when their lease comes up, there would have to be another solution in place. So for pickup and drop-off, again, another option is using the city hall parking and having the parents walk the kids across Baker at the street light, drop them off, and then walk back to the city hall parking, since that's unregulated, essentially. And the preferred option would be that parents would park, by the applicant and the city, that seemed the most reasonable. Parents would park in either the Depot Park or O'Shaughnessy Center public spaces, and Foxtel staff would escort students in a group walk at the beginning and at the end of class to Depot Park for pickup at 8:30 a.m. and 8:45 p.m. Staff would wear high visibility clothing, and this eliminates crossing of busy Highway 93 and other streets by utilizing the viaduct pedestrian tunnel. This could pose an issue. One of the concerns was this could pose an issue when farmers markets or other events are happening in Depot Park. It was expressed that the farmers market doesn't start setup until later than the students are picked up. And then there was concern with the distance the students must walk and the weather, but it was stated that kids are tough, and that's one of the learning lessons of the school is to take the walks. So that would be about 0.38 miles of a walk for them. And quality and functionality, there's no parking associated with the existing building, as we've said. However, for their staff, Foxtel would apply for 3 to 5 parking permits through the pilot parking program if the CUP is approved. So that's a solution for the staff, at least. And traffic circulation could be impacted during pickup and drop-off times. Any larger school events would be infrequent and scheduled for weekday evenings when the parking stress is reduced. Foxtel also has a second location that would be operating on the other days of the week or could be used for events. So Foxtel School has dealt with parking because although it does not have any provided parking, it may be mitigated for staff by obtaining pilot parking permits and utilizing unrestricted public parking located downtown. Traffic could be impacted during pickup and drop-off of students, and this is a major concern for the city because no dedicated space exists. No new landscaping, fencing, or utilities are proposed, and signage would need a permit. This is an existing building, so for availability and adequacy of public services, that's all available already. Neighborhood and community impact. No traffic impact study is needed. It's not anticipated to generate more than 200 trips per day. Hours of operation, again, just Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8:30 to 3. And it wouldn't have any, noise, dust, smoke, or environmental issues for the neighborhood. For community compatibility, it's not going to increase density. Again, this is an existing building. As far as community character, the downtown community provides an opportunity for an immersive indoor-outdoor classroom at the community center. Foxtel would provide an alternative learning program for children transitioning from preschool to primary school. Foxtel states that their learning approach is very place-based, which allows students to establish relationships to the community. Local businesses would benefit from sharing their knowledge with students and could receive increased patronage from families during pickup and drop-off times. Community engagement projects students would engage in include volunteering at the food bank, cleaning up city parks, shadowing local businesses, and using open spaces for nature and sustainability lessons. The applicant also attached an example lesson plan. And they're not limited to understanding traffic signals and crosswalks, how to make a grocery list and purchase things at the store, how to read a snow bus schedule, field trips to local businesses, how to plan and be reliable, etc. Those are kind of the learning points that the school makes with the students. So the project is compatible with the neighborhood and community because the building itself isn't going to change in size or feel, and any changes would have to be passed through architectural review, but again, none are proposed. And it would enhance community engagement and involvement from young students to contribute to overall community character. So the planning board reviewed the application on March 17th, and the motion passed 4-2 in favor of approval with 2 in opposition. City staff does recommend approval for the request for a CUP, but with heavy condition on number 4 of providing a solution for pickup and drop off for the students, that it be submitted and agreed upon with the city before certificate of occupancy is issued. And that's it.
Thanks, Jessica. Any questions for Jessica? Frank?
Thank you, Jake. Are there any issues regarding ADA compliance of that building, given you could potentially have handicapped kids coming in and out, and they have to go up those stairs?
Yeah, I don't believe there is a way to get to the second floor with that. That would be I believe that's at the state level for making sure that they have access to that. And yeah, there's no ADA parking spaces that could be, allocated to this. I think Craig might know more ADA.
I can't really answer that. I know that we would have ADA requirements for new construction, but because this is a modification of an existing structure, I think there would be some level of state inspection and requirement, but I can't speak directly to it.
Dave, anything to add?
Yeah, just, they're gonna have to make sure that that upper story, meets the building code under state law, which is mostly gonna look at fire and emergency access and egress. I think there's some stuff that modifications are gonna be needed to be done on the back exit and some things like that. But on existing buildings, we don't typically require them to upgrade them to ADA standards, although, it's a federal requirement.
And the applicant's engineer architect is here as well too. Might be able to better answer plans for that.
Any other questions? Ben?
I have every confidence that a reasonable solution can be worked out to the pickup drop-off problem, but I was kind of curious. You do have as a condition in here, which makes sense to me, but it only says that the applicant must provide a safe student pickup and drop-off solution to the city at the time of building permit. How come it doesn't carry into the future? So for example, if let's say the school gets sold to another party and the other party doesn't care about the pickup and drop-off thing anymore, I'm just wondering if it should maybe apply going forward. What do you think?
From my understanding, the CUP stays with the building, so that condition would have to stick.
Okay, but it is worded in such a way that it says it only applies during the time of building permit.
Well, that's when we review it, but it could have some language saying probably a safe, permanent student pickup drop-off solution, add that word permanent in there.
Sure.
Yeah, we could edit that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Jessica? Not seeing any. Thanks, Jessica. We did advertise for a public hearing on item 7B of the agenda, and we'll hold that public hearing now. I would invite the applicant, if Patricia's present, or the applicant's representative to speak to the council if you have anything to add. Great. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kayla Nichols, and I am one of the co-founders of Foxtel Free Schola. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Free Schola. The city-county growth policy notes state, any community's most important resource is its people. I could not agree more wholeheartedly. How do we as adults let our children create, protect, advocate for, and interact with our community if we aren't immersed in it? I founded Foxtail for Scola, the outdoor preschool in Whitefish, 4 years ago with these same questions in mind, and I continue to have them in mind as we create a developmentally appropriate program for school-age children, 7 through 9 years old. Our school is using a place-based model of learning in which where we learn is as important as the what and the why. Concrete experience is the essence of education for young children. I want to be clear here. Linoleum is not concrete. Videos are not a substitute for conversations. The walls of a classroom, for those who are learning how to see, should be see-through. Learning how to nurture a sourdough starter to bake nutrient-dense bread, or repair one's own bike from the local shop next door, or taking on a project with the food bank to inventory, categorize, and optimize its shelves for their patrons. These are tools. These are blueprints that we give our kids. Eventually, we want them to learn how to read Tolstoy, how to interpret economic data, how to build working prototypes, and protect riparian zones. But first, they must feel the firsthand power of their actions, to see their effects show up on the faces of people, to hear their names in the mouths of shopkeepers and builders and librarians. Our relationships with all of these people and with the trees we plant along a bike path we ride on next to the restaurant where we planned and hosted a meal for our community leaders. This is what this location means to us. And if I can say one thing about our small town and its obligations to our kids, I want to advocate for the rights of our children, not merely as children, but as citizens as well. As interested parties in the character and direction of this city's growth and development, it seems axiomatic that planning and designing a city that accommodates children and their families would by extension appeal to all other ages and demographic groups, creating the kind of vibrant, clean, and safe spaces I think this town is interested in maintaining and developing. Our kids are urban kids, even if you live west of town, hidden in the trees, nestled against a silent lake. Smartphones and 5G data and multi-channel streaming platforms make this so. A downtown school with feet and hands in the shops and businesses and organizations we call neighbors is part of that vital childhood infrastructure that helps achieve the growth strategies and sustainable development laid out by this council and the councils past. When children enter the consciousness of planning and development decisions of active streets and businesses who satisfy family needs, the public interest is improved. A growing number of Whitefish families are enrolling their children in schools like Olney Bissell and West Glacier. We would really like to keep those families in our community by offering alternative schooling options. The Flathead Valley is lacking in alternative programs for children transitioning from preschool into primary school. Many of our current families are in search of alternatives for their school-age children, and we are an established program with an earned reputation that allows us to begin our proposed program this coming fall. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Kayla.
Hi, my name is Brooke Ober. I'm another co-founder and I'm a speech pathologist in the area. So my area of specialty is social emotional learning and executive functioning. And so I don't know how much information you guys really want about the details of the school, but I just wanted to sort of give you a little bit of understanding of this piece of it, which is, so I do give trainings in the area in this regard, and it's always been kind of a dream to be able to embed it into all of the curriculum and what's being learned. All the research now talks about this sort of compassion-based learning concept and how it starts with the experience. And so with that, when we're trying to teach kids about compassion and empathy and self-advocacy and agency and perspective taking and these types of concepts, to be able to have them learn this in the context of a community so that they can go into a business and they can actually see how it works, and then they can bring that back and sort of take the perspectives of the different areas and what actually goes into it is really what creates empathy and understanding. And with that, it would be a project-based learning model. So that's kind of this concept where I sometimes think of it as learning how to learn rather than being told what to learn. So you're really kind of starting with the goal and the purpose in mind. It's very purpose-driven concepts. And so that's where the projects would sort of be directed. And curriculum-wise, all very research-based and, meeting the standards. So just wanted to add that in.
Thanks, Brooke.
Hi, I'm Patricia Johnson, Patty, and I am also a owner of the Friscola, co-founder. I am also a speech-language pathologist like Brooke and have a vested interest in literacy. And so I wanted to start by saying that we are committed to the most evidence-based literacy initiatives. 36% of fourth graders in our country read at a proficient level, and there are very scientific reasons for this, so we're really committed to that. And also, one thing that is crucial for reading comprehension and just developing reading and writing is background knowledge and background experience. And the more background experience children have and can bring to the table in literacy, the better their reading skills grow and their vocabulary grows. So I wanted to say those things that we're really committed to. I'm also going to speak a little more directly to the drop-off pickup piece of things. So I blew up the parking map. I just wanted to kind of explain our just explain a little bit how we got to the Depot Park thing. So we kind of started off thinking that, so here is the building, that there was all this public parking around and we could just have parents, it's like 15-minute spots, we could just have parents utilize the public parking that the Whitefish map designates. But we heard from the city that that wasn't a viable option. And so we considered Kay Beller Park and using the underpass over there as well. And also we're told by the city that that wasn't viable. So we then brainstormed the parking garage and finally landed on Depot Park. We have walked the Depot Park. We've walked that several times, and it is a 5 to 7 minute walk. 0.38 miles. And a lot of our students do come from Foxtail Friscola, which is a 80% outdoor all year round program. So they're well dressed and ready for that. And we also feel like that's a really great way to start and end a day is with a walk and noticing the environment around us and what's happening, being able to talk to each other, learn chants to sing together, things like that. Really great for those kids' brains. So we feel really good about that option. And we wanted to correct a few things. So based on the feedback we got from the planning board, we've chosen to shift our time so that the start time will now be at 8:45 and will end at 3:45, which should allow for as little overlap with the other major school day release times, Muldown and the middle school. We've driven it several times and the traffic is actually fairly light at those times of day. Farmers market, there are about 40 weeks in the school year, and it looks like about 4 of these weeks we would overlap with the farmers market. This means that 4 afternoons a year for 30 minutes our parents would have to park elsewhere, or we could consider an early release on those days. And then we also just want to address walkability of this location. So this location encourages families and staff to walk or bike to school if they live close enough. It also is centrally located and easily accessible by walking path, with no major street crossings from that Depot Park location. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Thanks, Patty. Sure.
I wanted to just say, Steve, you had mentioned in the previous meeting about the location, and I just wanted you to know that we have really worked round and round about thinking about, would it be better to be outside of town, and are there better ways to do this? And we just really keep coming back to this concept of, if you're trying to get this community feel and understand how a community works, it's just really nice to have that ability to feel like you're in the community, and you can just have different groups going and doing different aspects within the community for these different projects. Just wanted to make sure. And I guess the other thing that I wanted to say to stem off what you were saying is, for this type of conceptual-based learning, really right now, the only place is Montessori, which is on the other side of Kalispell, which a lot of families drive to, and it's a bummer because they want to be a part of this community here, and it's always this inner turmoil back and forth about, what should I do? I want to stay in Whitefish, but I really want this conceptual-based learning model. So even though this isn't identical to Montessori, it's still a conceptual-based learning model that's now taking in the context of group learning, so that it's more of a collaborative approach. So you're kind of getting the conceptual-based learning, but you're getting it in sort of a shared imagination, collaborating with a group type of concept.
Thanks, Brooke. Further public testimony this evening.
Good evening. I'm Courtney Lyle, and I'm a parent in Whitefish. I'm also a pediatric physician. Participate with both Whitefish Public Schools as well as Foxtail, and so I get to see a little bit of everything, as well as within my own practice, having cared for kids across the state of Montana. And I appreciate your willingness to look at this proposal. The benefit that this school brings this community is phenomenal. So I've been able to participate with my youngest child, and it brings a community of kids that get to come together in a much smaller basis than our public school can provide. Public school can certainly provide an incredible education, and it does a great job for many of our students, but it doesn't meet the needs of all of our students. In fact, as many of our founders have mentioned, a number of our Whitefish families are currently driving out of Whitefish to find schools that meet the needs for their children. This includes driving to the south side of Kalispell, Olney, West Glacier, Columbia Falls, and then homeschool. So they are really searching for something to meet the needs of their child. This school won't meet the needs of all children either, but it will certainly provide more options in Whitefish. People in Whitefish are looking for this. Flathead Valley needs options. So kudos to the team for doing this, and thank you all for considering this. The other point of consideration is parking. I think it's great that everybody's considering this. This is a downtown school. I think the parents that are going to enroll their child are looking for an option that is different than a standard public school option. It's going to look different, it's going to feel different. I don't think parents are looking for the same sort of setup, so I think we also need to conceptualize that a little bit differently. The idea of pickup and drop-off, and when you think about 30 students, does not look like pickup and drop-off that we all have some stress and horrors about if you drive through the east side of town at 8:15 in the morning. That side of town is somewhere on the order of 1,500 students that are getting dropped off in a 2-block little section of town within a 15-minute period of time. I live there, I see it, feel it every day. We're talking about 30 students. So I know in Whitefish there's this angst about pickup and drop off. We all live it and breathe it. This is 30 students. So I think we can certainly figure out a reasonable solution, but I don't think we need to put it in the same box of what we're thinking about on the east side of town. With regards to that 30 students, I think we need to also consider we're not gonna have 30 students driving to town. I live downtown Whitefish so that my kids can walk to school. Currently walk to Muldown. If we attend this school, we'd walk to school. That's why we bought where we bought. If you look at where this is located, all of you obviously know Whitefish. It's within a half-mile distance from anything that would be north of the wave, anything on the east side neighborhood, anything in the north side of the viaduct. Those families have the option to walk or bike to school. We might have some cold days, maybe they drive those days, but this is certainly a community of families who embrace the outdoors, who want to embrace their community, and will likely see many of those. I can't speak to the numbers that will be there. Should my child enroll in this, we'd be a walker. You know, we'd walk to school every day. With regards to finding that spot, I certainly hear that there aren't any identified parking spots right there. It sounds like they've come up with a possible option with a depot park. The other consideration is, are we thinking too hard about this? Again, you're probably looking at most 20 drop-offs. People are coming from all different parts of town. Do we want to put everybody in the same spot? Do we want to put that congestion into the same street in an area that's already congested during the day? Or do we let parents park where they want to park? You know, if you're coming from the west side of town, perhaps you park by the river in the community center. If you're coming across the viaduct, perhaps you park in the garage lot. If you're coming from the wave location, you do on-street parking and you walk your kid across. You know, I think we all just have so much angst about what we see on the east side of town with pickup and drop-off that there's this incredible sense of what that's going to look like. But the location actually will improve one's ability to get to school without having to get in a car every day. So those are my considerations that I would hope you would consider, but I think this is an incredible benefit for our community, and I thank the team for putting this together. Thank you.
Thanks, Courtney. Further public testimony this evening. Ray.
Ray Boxage, 223 Columbia Avenue. I have to give credit to these folks and the caliber of the people that we have involved in this school. I've heard nothing but good things about this school, but I think it's in the wrong location. Anybody who knows that building knows the pitfalls of that building. I've taught second graders, I've taught third graders. The thoughts of getting them ready for an outdoor winter experience and going up and down the stairs there kind of gives me a headache just to think about it. It's not a building that's conducive to a school for young children. Maybe junior high, maybe high school alternative schools. I think their program is fantastic. I know kids, parents who have their school kids in the program. I have nothing but good things to say about the program, but the location is not good. The drop-off point may be at Depot Park, and they maybe want to walk the kids over here. That all depends on when those parents arrive. These are parents of little kids who maybe they're having a bad morning, they're having a bad day, they're half an hour late. They're not going to show up in time to be walked over by one group of people. It's just not conducive. If you've dealt with small children in a school situation in a building like that, it's not good. I applaud what they're doing, but I wish you would do it somewhere else that would more benefit your program. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray.
Hi, thank you for your time today. Rhett Johnson, I'm a parent here in Whitefish. I have a 7-year-old who would likely attend the school if this is approved. Part of my parenting experience, though, was with my 2 older children who are now grown, and it was in an urban setting. It was actually in a 5-story walk-up building with no accessible parking. We probably walked, I don't know, 6 or 8 blocks from public transportation. It was my absolute favorite time of the day because I got to spend that time outside, rain or shine, with my 2 small children. And you know what? Yeah, there was no parking, and it was a 5-story walk-up, and there was a classroom on every floor, and then there was a basement, and it was winter, and it was snowy, and you know, we dressed for it, and they went to recess at a public park, and they walked to the public library, rain or shine. They had a great experience by being integrated into their community. They did their service work in the community. They collected for UNICEF from the local businesses. It was a fantastic experience for these kids. And yeah, and it was a similar situation in an urban setting with the kinds of difficulties that were just discussed by the prior gentleman. And you know what? It worked out because the parents and the families and the teachers were committed to it. And it was a fabulous experience, not in spite of being in the city, but because it was in the city. And I think that's the kind of alternative environment that's being considered here, and the location is integral to the experience that the kids have. So I do appreciate the difficulties, but I also embrace them as a parent, because it's the kind of thing that really added to my 2 older kids' education, and I would welcome an opportunity to help my 7-year-old overcome whatever challenges there might be to experience something like this. So thank you for your consideration. I appreciate the time.
Thanks, Rhett. Further comments from the public?
Hi, my name is Brittany Kress. This is my son, Arlo. I am coming to you as a mom and as an educator. I have a degree in elementary education in K through 12 in math and science, a master's in curriculum and education, and I am a full supporter of the public school system. I'm a product of it, and I believe there's a lot of great things that come out of the public school system. I have a child here who has been with the Foxtail program for the past 3 years. This year he's doing his kindergarten year out at the school, and my expectations of the school were that he was outside, integrated socially, physically, mentally stimulated, and he's come out of this program learning how to read, how to write, arithmetic, all of these things that have been added on and because of the program that's being offered. And so with that, as an educator, this program has really opened my eyes to the different types of learnings and how it can be successful. And it doesn't have to be in a building that you're sitting for 5 days a week. And you don't have to be in a building where you have a class full of 20 kids, all the same age. It can look different. It can be this project-based learning. It can be within the community. It can look different. Let's see, the location for us is pretty crucial. We currently live in City Beach neighborhood, and next year he's going to be in 1st grade and going to Muldown. We're going to be another car on the road that's driving to Muldown. Walkability to Muldown it's not great for us over at City Beach. We could bike, would be okay, not bad. This location here, to show you, this is what it would look like as a family heading downtown. We're able to walk, we're able to bike. We're choosing this school for the location because it's a great location. It's easy for us to get out there. It's in our community. We are a part of Whitefish, and we would love to have another option that would be for our kids. Let's see. And that is all I have. Thank you for your consideration.
Thanks, Brittany.
Hi, my name's Kimberly Poore. I live at 564 Kalispell here in Whitefish. I am a community member and a parent, and oh, I get emotional. And I've been an educator for 10 years. I have a master's in teaching, and I have a master's in educational leadership. I'm just going to we've heard a lot of stuff. I'm just going to say 3 things. We've seen more than ever that we need alternatives and opportunities for our kids that don't look like what we thought school would look like. We've seen that. As a parent, I've seen it. As a community member, as an educator, I've seen it. We just need other choices. Not every school is going to have everything or meet the needs of every student, which we've heard before, but to have an opportunity to have another place to meet more of those needs, how can we say no? The second is the curriculum of the school. The curriculum, the passion, the focus on the actual scientific evidence of what makes teaching good and how we can be great teachers, and how we can create and engage immersive learners. That's what they're focusing everything on, and that's what we should be focusing everything on in all of our schools. And so it's really exciting to see the work that's happened, and to think that this is an opportunity that my kid could have in the future. And last, kids are the future of this community. Like, they're it. If we want them to live here and be here, if we want them to know what city council meetings what this means, if we want them to know what it takes to make things work. Okay, we have a food bank, but why and how and what are all those moving pieces? Kids are so smart, and we should give them the chance early on to make an impact on the community and not tell them, do that in 20 years. We can tell them as a 6, 7, 8-year-old, 5-year-old, what can you do now for your community? And this school is giving them that chance. Thank you.
Thanks, Kimberly. Further comments from the public? Michelle, anyone online? Or sir? Yep.
My name is Kyle Stansberry, and I'm very well credentialed in the education system as well. I'm a therapist and work downtown. My son was 3.5 when I threw him out the car to Kayla in the wilderness, in the woods, at the farm with a snowsuit on year-round, with climbing up trees and jumping off hay bales, and without any injury or ever any serious return. We've been super involved in the school since. I don't really know of any really major incident that's happened that's outside that we'd think would happen. So the idea of then Bo still going to school with her in an urban environment, no matter if there's stairs or not, or I'm not really worried about that. I think there's a much bigger picture here. And there's that thing of like the idea of getting all those kids dressed. Like most forest school kids don't get dressed, they dress themselves, you know. And the idea that he can run up and down the like hills and slide and trees, and I'm not too worried about the actual physical environment. And also as parents, we're very resilient parents. And I love how in Montana we kind of like have opportunity we want to and figure it out, you know. And if we want to take chances and come up with like an urban school or a good setting, like I think we should be able to do that. And I trust people like Kayla that accept me. Of course, they're brilliant and they're an exceptional job what they're doing. And we want to be a good part of the community. Also, the parenthood is phenomenal. The bonds that happen between us is exceptional. If we do that downtown or in an urban setting, it's going to be even better for our community. It's already kind of diffused or needs some more cohesion. So thanks for your time.
Thanks, Kyle. Further public comment for those in attendance tonight? Michelle, how about online? Please.
Yeah, thank you. Kristen, if you'd like to unmute your mic, please state your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Kristen McIntyre. I'm at 63 Scholar. I have 3 children that live in the Whitefish School District. Just to address some of the public comment, for those of you that know me, I ran a preschool with the oldest children being 5 years old down to infants. We dressed them every day, multiple times a day to go outside, and there were 8 stairs they were able to manage. Big Mountain has done a great job at teaching Whitefish children to navigate stairs, especially in ski boots. If you've spent any time on the mountain, they can figure that out. In regards to the school, my oldest, who's now 17 and at the high school, attended Kalispell Montessori for 4 years. We made that drive. It was a great decision for her. I now have a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. This would be an awesome option for my 8-year-old. However, if I did not have this option, I would choose to take him back down to South Kalispell. And because school times and start times are similar, that means that my 10-year-old can't go to school in the district. She's got to go somewhere in South Kalispell as well. And if I have 2 kids that I'm picking up and dropping off a little after 8 and picking them up around 3, well, that means my skill set and my job is probably going to be in South Kalispell as well. So now we've really fractured our relationship with the community. So this is something we'd like to see. I hear a lot of comments on the parking. You know, it was approved as base camp before. Did those people not use public parking, or how did that work? Because there were a lot of desks in there when it was base camp. So that's a thought. But again, thanks you guys for hearing it, and take care.
Thanks, Kristen.
We're good now. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and turn it back to the council for preferably a motion and then followed by a discussion. Ben.
I think we should approve this. I'm going to make a motion to approve with an amendment to a small language change in the conditions. So I'll take those as 2 motions.
Please, let's get a second to the original motion. Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Councilor Quinnell. Ben, amendment.
I just would make a small language amendment to condition 4 to state that the applicant must provide a safe student pickup drop-off location at all times to be approved by city staff.
Is there a second to the friendly amendment?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilor Cornell. We'll vote on the friendly amendment to condition number 4 first before acting on the original motion. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign, and that motion does carry unanimously. Steve.
Ben, if you would entertain a friendly amendment, I'd like to add a condition of approval.
Go for it.
I would like to add condition 8 that says that the school time will be limited to 8:45 a.m. to 3:45 p.m.
Is there a second to the friendly amendment to condition number 8? Not seeing a second, the motion does fail for lack of a second. Frank? Which we're about to move to, so it's all yours.
I'm happy to support the amendment that we did for parking, Ben. I tend to also agree with one of our commenters this evening. We may have been overthinking this parking and drop-off routine, given the numbers we're seeing and the type of school that we're dealing with, and the approach to school that we're dealing with. But in any case, whatever they did needs to be safe, and so I'm happy with that. But just throwing that out there. There you go.
Thanks, Frank. Further comments on the motion? Rebecca? Okay.
Joe, do you have any concerns about evacuation in the event that there was a fire, since it's such an old building?
It's definitely stuff that the fire marshal will be looking at when they do their plan as far as updating the building.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Ben, and then I saw Steve's hand.
Yeah, I would just make a general comment that, in my opinion, of course, we should allow a school in the downtown area. I mean, it is the central part of our community. The kids are also a central part of our community, and so maybe it's just because I lived in larger cities briefly in my younger years, and so I've seen a lot of schools that are in urban areas, and I don't think there's an issue with that. And yeah, we may be overthinking it, possibly. You know, Frank, I don't disagree with that, but ultimately, schools are good. Downtown is good. I think we should approve this tonight. So,
thanks, Ben. Steve.
I just want to start by saying I appreciate all the passion for education in this room. Some of you know that I am a high school teacher, and I've taught pretty much every grade at some level, from preschool to graduate school. And I just want to say that this was, you may also know that I was one of the dissenting voices at the planning board meeting, and it was never about the school or the curriculum itself. I hope you all understand that. It's about, and you know, if I had the chance to rewind the clock and possibly take my kids there, I probably would. But they're past that age now, so unless you come up with a college somewhere downtown. Anyway, the question is this in the right location? And I still have very serious concerns about that. We've talked a lot about safety around here. We're talking about if you've ever driven through that area, not even by the schools, at any time between 8 and 8:30, it's a zoo in there. And Whitefish parents, being who they are typically not on time, and they will be finding any way possible to zip into a parking place and drop their kids off and shove them out the door, even at 6 years old, so that they can run into Lula's there, the Lula's building. So I appreciate that you changed the time. That was the one thing that really kind of, I think that is the mitigating factor, which is why I wanted to add it as a condition of approval. Because that is what's going to change the metric there. If you're late for 8:45, you're at 8. You know, it's not going to be the same safety issue getting your kid into that building. So I appreciate that you listened to that comment and you changed that, which is why I think it should be in the conditional use for any school that's there. Because now that we have a conditional use there, it could be a school, any other school as well. So, but that didn't pass, but I will still support the motion.
Thanks, Steve. Further comments on the motion? Rebecca.
Yeah, I just think what you're doing is very beautiful. I remember when we had the old city hall, we had the library on the top floor, and there were always children in there. And I think it's great to have kids downtown. So And I do think we need a lot of alternatives to match the kids to the environment that they grow best in. So thank you for persisting, and, you know, if the location doesn't work out, you'll know. You know, if it gets too busy down here and it's unsafe or distracting, then you can change your location. But I think it's worth a good try. I think it would be really nice to see children downtown, but safety is key too. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. My only comment is, because I was sitting up here at the time when North Valley Music School submitted their CUP for the location on Spokane Avenue, this exact same issue came up, and it's what kind of ground things to somewhat of a halt for several planning board meetings as well as council meetings. I would argue that that's a busier street. The drop-off times and pickup times are not as ideal as your application, and the speed limits are higher, and there's definitely more traffic. So I think this is a great proposal. I wish you the best of luck with your endeavor, and it's, like you guys mentioned, it's going to be great to see kids downtown. So on that note, we'll vote on the original motion as amended with a slight friendly amendment to condition number 4. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign, and that's unanimous. Congrats. We'll let folks filter out before we jump to our next item. Maybe we'll go ahead and take a 5-minute recess. Going to go ahead and call this meeting back to order, and we'll move on to item 7B, which is consideration of a request from Ralph Simpson for Most Physical Therapy for a conditional use permit to expand the business to an accessory building under an existing CUP, and the property is located at 576 Spokane Avenue, and it is zone WR4, which is our multi-family residential high-density district. Jessica.
So this property, 576 Spokane Avenue, originally received a conditional use permit to operate a professional office in 2001 under Water Consulting Incorporated. In 2004, Most applied and was granted approval for a CUP to expand their business. So if you're doing any expansion to a business operating under a CUP, you need another CUP. So they did actually get this pretty much exact CUP approved in 2004, but however it lapsed when work was not began in 18 months. So Most is again applying for expansion of their existing business into a garage or an accessory building at the rear of the lot. The applicant is requesting to expand the existing business, which is 900 square feet. They're looking to increase by 588 square feet in an accessory building in the back of the lot, which include treatment rooms and Pilates equipment. Again, they have to file for it because it's an expansion of a business currently operating under a CUP. An existing deteriorated garage would be removed and replaced with a new 2-story building. The proposed structure would be considered an accessory structure, and there are 2 employees who see clients one-on-one, and that mode of operation would continue with the new building. To the north, you have WR4 as well. To the south, WB2, east WR4, and west WR4 for the surrounding parcels. It's zoned WR4, high-density multifamily residential, and it's intended for higher density residential purposes and for limited non-residential uses that are compatible with a residential setting connected to municipal utilities and services. So professional offices are a conditional use in this zone and are limited to specific areas of Spokane, Central, Baker, and Wisconsin avenues. And this property meets those specifications, being on Spokane. A notice was mailed to adjacent landowners within 300 feet and to advisory agencies, and a notice was published in the paper. And 3 emails were received for the proposed project. Montana Department of Transportation and 1 private party were in support with the proposed project, and the 3rd email pertained to errors in the site plan, which have since been corrected by the applicant. So again, it fits with the growth policy compliance. It's a designation of general commercial within a WR4 zone along Spokane Avenue, and compliance with regulations. Professional offices are a conditional use in this zone and are limited to specific areas of Spokane, Central, Baker, and Wisconsin avenues. It is consistent with that. The WR4 setbacks are 20, 10, and 15 from the front, side, and rear. This structure, however, would be an accessory structure. It's 588 square feet, so they would be able to use 6 feet on the sides and the rear. Parking requires 1 space per 400 feet of gross floor area. They would have to have 5 parking spots with this, and it appears the standard is met in their plans, and it'll be confirmed at building permit. Maximum height for an accessory building is 24 feet. It appears to meet that as well, and appears to comply with all the zoning regulations, and again will be confirmed at the time of the building permit. The site suitability, it's adequate to serve the proposed use. It meets site suitability. It has adequate usable area and parking and access for emergency crews. Quality and functionality. The business's existing landscaping plan will be required for the new parking areas and the site. The applicant is considering a floating raft slab to preserve tree roots of the large oak tree on site. There's a really, really big oak that they want to preserve, so they're going to position it and use the accessory setbacks in order to avoid that tree. And compliance with the landscaping chapter will be confirmed at building permit. The site plan also includes their proposed landscaping right now. So it does meet the quality and functionality for the site. And it does have public services and facilities. The paved streets on both sides, Spokane and East 6th Street, would be used for access. And neighborhood community and impact. It's not anticipated to have negative neighborhood impact, no noise, dust, smoke, odor, or other environmental nuisances. Clients are going to stay one-on-one so it's not going to really increase traffic or parking needs for that specific building. And community compatibility, the existing neighborhood is a mixture of commercial, home occupations, and residential uses, so it fits within that. And the deteriorated garage will be tore down and replaced with a new building. So the Whitefish Planning Board voted unanimously for approval of the request for a conditional use permit, and city staff requests approval for this CUP as well.
Thanks, Jessica. Any questions for Jessica on her staff report? Not seeing any. Thank you. We did advertise for a public hearing on item 7C. We'll hold that public hearing now. Is there any public testimony, Phil? Any comments online? Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and turn it back to the council for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve WCUP 22-12, the findings of fact and the staff report and the recommended conditions of approval as recommended by the Whitefish Planning Board on March 17th, 2022.
Thank you, Frank. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Quinnell. Discussion, comments? I think it's going to be a great project. I actually was in that building in 2001 with Water Consulting, and now I'm an actual patient in my old office. So it's kind of weird, but was a patient. That's come and gone. Anyway, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign, and that motion does carry unanimously. You have Dana's report enclosed with the packet. Any questions for Dana on her staff report? Manager's report, I should say. Not seeing any. Dana, anything additional to report on?
I have just a couple items. First is we have been working with our consultants for the housing needs assessment that is due for an update. We have that budgeted this fiscal year. We have $40,000 budgeted. Their proposal, though, is to not only update the needs assessment, but to also update the strategic plan at the same time. And that estimated cost, the proposal came in at about just over $65,000 to update both. Doing it at the same time allows them to better use data and not have to, go back and reassess data for doing the strategic plan update. And so when I look at the budget, we do have the $40,000 for the housing needs assessment update, but we also had $30,000 set aside for a TIF, tax increment financing district analysis and a study. Since we're not proceeding with that, I would like to see if council is okay with me reallocating those funds to this project. We anticipate that we will have to carry over some of those funds to next fiscal year since the project wouldn't be completed until October. But just, so that we can expedite this process, as we know that updating the housing needs assessment and our strategies is very important, as it's our top issue in the city. So maybe a showing of hands to see if that's support from the council would be helpful for me. Yep.
So we're not going to be pursuing a new TIF fund, Dana?
Not with this fiscal year.
Oh,
no.
Okay, but in the future we are.
Maybe in the future. I don't know about this next fiscal year budget, but it would be something that in the future we would have to look at again. I think as our city is developed, the areas that even we looked at for the feasibility study, as those have been redeveloped without the public infrastructure needs that a TIF could provide, I would say we're going to be limited to areas of blight and whitefish at this point.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't understand that. Thank you.
There's so few areas,
Right.
and the
remember.
economic return by the time you wait for the increment to grow would be minor compared to our old TIF district. So
I
I
remember
think we
when-
all question
Yeah.
whether that's the highest priority right now, given staff time.
Boy, it sure did good for the city when we got it,
Sure
though.
did.
I mean, it was amazing what it paid for.
It encompassed a very large portion of the city, if not all of downtown and most of
Yeah.
some of the residential areas, which is uncommon for TIF districts now.
It is, okay.
Steve?
Well, thanks.
My question, Dana, is how much bang for our buck are we getting out of these studies? Because, I mean, it's more of a rhetorical question. I don't oppose what we're trying to do here, but I don't, seems like we have all these studies and all these strategies, and then we really struggle to implement them. So I just wonder how much bang for our buck we're getting.
Sure.
Thanks, Steve. Further comments? We do need a showing of hands approving the additional funds. Did you have a question, Ben?
No, I would just make a quick comment. I understand what Steve's saying, and this is inexpensive update and some views. But I mean, the reality is the solutions of what we need to do here seem to change. Like it's not like, the existing strategic housing plan is now 4, 5 years old, 6 years old, or whatever it is. And it just seems like the situation on the ground changes pretty fast. And, to be honest, one good idea that comes out of a new plan is worth that much money to the citizens, I think, in the long term. And so I do think it's something we should support.
Is that the unanimous sentiment of council? Thanks, Dana.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
I do have just one more
Yeah, of course.
item. I do have just wanted to give you guys an update that we did hold second interviews for the finance director position. We are not moving forward with any of those candidates, so we are posting the job again. With that, in my manager's report, you'll see that I have more of a request, but maybe more of a statement, that the budget will be to May 16th instead of May 2nd, giving myself just a couple more weeks to get that done. But we are hopeful that we'll be able to find a new finance director in this next round. And I think the only other topic I have, John, on my list is the retreat, which maybe you'll get to later in the counselor
Sure.
comments. So,
Thanks,
you.
Dana. Let's see, we made our appointments this evening. Welcome back Ron and Ray to the Park Board of Commissioners. And we'll start with comments tonight from the City Council. Frank, would you like to begin? Excuse me? Yeah, I think we'll cover that. Absolutely. Yep.
You want to start there? The short-term rentals?
Sure.
Or, no, you're talking about short-term, or are you talking about accessory dwelling units?
ADUs. We can start with it because I'm sure it's going to take a little time.
Right. I made most of my comments earlier with respect to what my concerns are with the ADUs. I want to make it clear two things. I want us to move forward with these regulations, however they're amended. These are no longer items that should be coming to our table. They shouldn't be going to the planning board. They're a waste of everybody's time. We want these things. We've never refused to approve one. And so if nothing else happens, that we simply approve and remove this thing to administrative CUP or make it by right, we can do that tonight. And we can worry about other changes that we want or might want with respect to ADUs at a later time. I'm perfectly happy to move forward with this thing on that basis. The concerns I have with some of the amendments stand. I'm a little concerned about the parking. Dave did clarify that the only way you get to participate in not having to provide parking for an ADU is if you're participating in the incentives. In other words, you're going to restrict it to a 12-month lease and preferably for a resident and hopefully somebody that's working in our area. That's fine. I could live with that on that restriction. And so that bothers me a little less knowing it's going to be limited to that effect. At the same time, parking in most of our neighborhoods is at a premium. And again, with an ADU, and if what you want to have happen with an ADU happens, that's participating, is it's going to be one or maybe two people potentially living in this unit, working downtown or working in the area and participating in Whitefish, and they're going to have two cars. And so if we simply eliminate the requirement that they provide any parking on site, I think it's going to just make our neighborhoods even a little crazier. So I'm willing to live with that, but I just think we need to recognize that that's what's going to happen. And and the people that have been living in these neighborhoods and that like them are going to be the ones that are going to be complaining. And so I think that's something we need to think about. And I still think we need to have these structures subordinate in size and proportional to the lot, to the existing dwelling and the lots that they're on. I don't know how we do that, whether 800 is the right number on a fixed basis, I don't know, but I don't have enough information. I mean, one of the things we were talking about earlier was one of the, that house that Ralph is operating in, it's a single-family dwelling. It's, 700 square feet?
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to add an accessory dwelling unit that's going to be 600 square feet. That might be appropriate under the circumstances, but it's not like we've got a lot of the lots, and Nathan may be right. Maybe a lot of these smaller houses will eventually be redeveloped into much larger structures or expanded if they put an accessory dwelling unit of 800 feet on them. But I don't know. I just think it provides an opportunity for us to think about that proportionality and how that fits in our neighborhoods. And that's kind of the other thing that I'm a little concerned about. I'm not opposed to it. I'm just saying that I don't think we've thought through it enough with respect to putting these things in our existing neighborhoods where we have single-family homes. And then the last concern I've got is, or not a concern, but something and again, it doesn't have to prevent us from moving forward with these proposed amendments to the ADUs, is that I think there's something else we ought to think through. If what we really want and what we think can help with is having this be workforce housing, or wanting it to be able to be available for workforce housing, I wonder if there's not a program that we could endorse either through the chamber or through the Whitefish Housing Authority that would allow for people who are constructing these ADUs to participate in some of the incentives, and maybe we got to create some more, to lease them in effect to our existing businesses that need local employees. The city comes to mind when we can't house seasonal employees. All the restaurants in town, a doctor, the hospital, and set up a program so that we in effect endorse and provide an incentive for people who are building these ADUs to participate, get them some benefit, and then we know it's going to somebody that's working in our community. And I think there's an opportunity we may be missing here that I think if we could think through that program, and again, it doesn't have to be, because it's going to take a little more thought. I want to get this ADU thing done. I wanted it done for 6 months. And so I don't want to stop us from doing it, but I think we need to associate that with some kind of a program where we incent the right thing to happen, which is these ADUs to be built and participate in supporting our workforce. So I throw that out to us as we start thinking through the parameters of what we want the incentives to look like and who they're available to. So I just throw that out to you.
Thanks, Frank. I don't mean to skip over you, Steve. I'll come right back to you, but I was speaking with Ben briefly at break, and I thought he had a good idea to bring forward as part of this discussion, if you don't mind. It might help speed this process tonight.
So I was just thinking about how to proceed here. This seems like an unusual situation to me where we have a version of this plan from the Housing Committee, and we have a version from the Planning Board that are a little different in some respects. And then we have a council that I think has some members in favor of one and possibly some in favor of the other. Or at least some concerns are going around between the two. It almost seems to me like we need to just reconcile these two bills together or something. And I was going to offer if we wanted to, with myself and another council member or two or whatever makes sense to get together at some point between now and when this comes back with staff to just hash through a couple of those details and come back with one proposal that kind of might be acceptable. Because I do think it's very important to me. I do think we need to get this done. And I think this is an easy topic to get just so far into these weeds we could sit here for 6 hours talking about it. And I think it'd be possibly useful to just try to hash that out and then bring back one version that I think encompasses a lot of the feedback that we have here. Just an idea.
Any volunteers to work with Ben on a consolidated draft? And you have the time between now and May 2nd, I believe?
The packet is due next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday?
Yeah.
That's right.
That's think about what we get to do, yeah. Always working.
I'm free all week.
Is that okay with the council? Yep.
Give it my ideas if council wants to.
Absolutely. Yep, we'll get to you. We're going to jump back to Steve, and then I'll jump to you, Rebecca, unless, Ben, do you have anything else tonight? Okay, thank you. Steve?
Thanks, Ben. I think that's a great idea. I also want to echo what Frank said, that we need to at least, at the very least in the beginning, get just the fact that this doesn't need to be a conditional use to come in front of us passed immediately, as immediately as possible. The other details we might need to hash out. I do want to reiterate what I said earlier. There are very few levers we can pull that can have as an immediate impact as this to loosen up some housing availability. I don't think that this is certainly no silver bullet. It's fraught with other issues that would come up by providing more housing in a town where housing is at a premium and people want to make as much money as they can, as fast as they can. But in terms of what a government can do, I think this is one of the easiest levers that we can pull, and we need to do it as quickly as possible. I'm not in favor of the owner occupancy, just so you can take some ideas with you. I think that needs to be done away with. I'm in favor of a limited deed restriction, whether it's 5 years or 7 years or 10 years or some version of that. I think that should be something that's included as a limited deed restriction. I'm in favor of an administrative CUP in a WR1 zone, and I think it makes sense to make this a by right in WR2, which is duplex zoned anyway, where you can have 2 dwelling units. So something to consider. I can go either way on the parking, knowing that no matter if we require parking and it's in a garage, people don't use their garages for their cars, not in this town. That's where their boats go and their ATVs and everything else, and no matter how many times we try to require parking, it doesn't happen. And even snowmobiles get parked on the side of the road as well. So, on trailers, of course. So, but I could go either way. If we need to require parking to get this done, that's fine. And then in terms of a size requirement, I just want to go back to the fact that we have not ever denied one of these to my knowledge. And I can think of a couple of these that we've approved where the garage is bigger than the house and it looks goofy. There's one in the railway district that I drive by because that's the new bypass from the light by the bank to get to the west side of town. And I just laugh every time I drive by it because the house is probably 600 square feet and the ADU is 2 stories and at least 600 on the living level. So I just don't see what problem we're solving by limiting it to some percentage of the size of the house. And in terms of materials and bulk and scale, if we're not requiring that for a garage, why would we require it for an ADU? I just don't, we have to be careful about how we go about that piece of it, and I think we can trust staff to come up with a really good guidelines for that. That's all I have on
Thanks,
this
Steve.
topic.
Anything further tonight? Okay, thanks. Rebecca?
Are these my closing remarks, or can I still talk about ADU and then have closing remarks
Sure,
after? Okay,
of course.
because I do have some closing remarks. Okay, so this is complicated, but what I really think is the reason why we're even revisiting it is because we want to produce housing. And we want it produced ideally for the people that live here and work here. And so I think we should label it a separate program. Like it should be a kind of a whole program, and that we incentivize people that live here to do this program in the front loading of things, and then at the back loading too. So the things that would be front loaded would be the no impact fees, no building permit fees, no land use fees, which Wendy gave us a thing tonight. It's over $5,000 worth of incentives that would be written off for someone that lives in town and is willing to do this to help us out. And then there would be an administrative CUP, possibly with no need to go through the planning board or the city council, which a lot of people don't want to do. Parking would not be required if a local rents it. We are creating a design standard booklet that will have designs in it that people could possibly copy, and that would reduce costs of hiring an architect and all of that. It can be attached or detached. It cannot be sold separately from the main dwelling. You only get one per lot. We can go up to 800 square feet. Right now it's at 600, but if it's an incentive to someone to go up to 800 square feet, we could. It cannot be rented for short-term rentals. And if someone agrees to do this, we have a 5-year deed restriction. That they're committing to this new program to try to get rentals housing. And I prefer that an owner is occupying the other one, but I did think of an incentive, which is if someone agreed to do this for 10 years, they could have both properties come into this program. Might not work, but, and then another incentive on the back end would be the truckee program, where they would get rent rebated from the city. So, you know about that, John? Where they're, oh, you don't? Okay, well, in Truckee, California, they're,
I do.
oh, yeah. Just for the public, there's a program in California that has high rents, and so there's a way to, for if someone could get a short-term rental rented for $3,500, there's a pool of money that would reduce that rent to $1,500 for the local workers, and then the owner would get that $2,000 from this pool of money. So we've been looking at numerous ski resorts and resort areas and how they handle the need for workforce housing, not just affordable housing, but workforce housing and keeping people coming back to work regularly. And so that's one of them that we have talked to some of the people that run that program about possibly contracting with them to see if they could help us set up a program with that so the people that have already bought properties that are being used for short-term rentals would be have the option of coming into that program if we developed it. So I think it could work if the people that live here were engaged in this process. And we've already been, you know, I call it the extraction society that we're living in, where people come here to invest to get more out than they give. But we have a lot of people in this community that give and give and give that have lived here a long time, and they might be able to invest further by having this structured program where they would have some incentives on the front and the back. So, does that make sense to you? Okay, thanks.
Anything further tonight, Rebecca? Yes.
I just wanted the public to know that the dog park is closed, Maria, for a couple weeks. And thank you for your staff. You were on a wonderful vacation when it was closed, and your staff opened it back up because a lot of people were wondering what's going on. So thank you. And then also Ben Cabin passed away, and he was just a wonderful volunteer for the city. And I had talked to him last fall when he discovered that he had cancer, and so I had conversations with him periodically, but you know, he's in a good place now. But I think we're all going to miss him a lot. He was definitely an advocate for everything wholesome and clean in the environment, and he was on our Lakeshore Protection Committee most recently, but he went to a lot of meetings, and just wonderful human being. I just wanted to honor him.
Thanks, Rebecca. Appreciate that. I have a few things this evening. Maria, congratulations. I don't know if the council's aware, but Maria was awarded the Professional of the Year at the State Park and Rec Conference. Congratulations, well deserved, hands down. I will be absent from the May 2nd meeting. I've been invited down to the Montana DEQ Stormwater and Resiliency annual meeting in Missoula, so I'll be speaking on the Haskell Basin project. So that should be interesting. Frank is here to chair the meeting. Let's see. I wanted to wish Jessica, our short-term, long-term planner, the best of luck at Glacier National Park. She was a pleasure to work with, and we certainly value her service to the city of Whitefish. I'd also like to congratulate Sergeant Conway. He was promoted to the Deputy Chief of Police. If you don't mind passing that along, Bridger, on behalf of the council, that would be great. Great addition to your crew. I believe he's been there, what, about 10 years? So, congratulations. And I'd also like to welcome all the new staff members that Dana mentioned in her manager's report. Marissa Getz, the housing coordinator and long-range planner, very sharp individual. Dawn Ossinger, utility billing customer service clerk. Jesse Knapp, the planning and building department administrative assistant. And Michael Samdahl, our new code compliance officer and building inspector. And just for those watching, we do have 13 positions advertised on the city website right now. A majority of those, again, being seasonal, but there's certainly several FTE positions available as well. Finally, I'm still waiting to hear from a few of you on whether May 20th or the 21st would work. Actually, we punted to June, so I'm sorry. I'm just trying to track this with all the changes we've made. I'm waiting to hear back from the location on possible dates in June, and I think we agreed to let's push it off till after, graduation and school closes, so we can do it midweek if possible. So as soon as I get those available dates, I'll send them back out to the council if that works for everyone. And then finally, I sent out my email today regarding my position on ADUs, and I would just ask that I don't need to rehash that. I copied the entire council as well as staff for your consideration when you and Frank do get together. And thanks again for making that suggestion. That's all I had. Anything further from staff? All right, we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.